Tonight we will be discussing Chapter 12 of Alice in Wonderland. First, let's examine the knowledge issue of reality within Alice in Wonderland. But is it reality? Professor Cohen, would you like to start us off?
Thank you. Narrator. Up through Chapter 12, Wonderland, including the characters, the environment, and all of Alice's physical changes have seemed quite absurd and unbelievable. At the end of Chapter 12, Alice's sister wakes her up from this obvious dreamlike state. This is clear proof that Alice's journey in Wonderland is unreal.
I respectfully disagree with Professor Cohen. Her so-called dream was actually a reality because her sense perception told her so. Also, the impact of the dream on her after she awakens proves that Wonderland became a real scenario.
Thank you for those introductory statements, professors. Now it is time to elaborate on these opposing viewpoints. Professors, before we go into detail, Chapter 12, give a quick recap of the rest of the book and how it pertains to the knowledge issue of reality. A girl named Alice falls down a rabbit hole, continually changes sizes throughout the book, and encounters a myriad of anthropomorphic characters. The book doesn't have much verisimilitude in that it doesn't bear much resemblance to reality. On page 67, and I quote, "The fishman began by producing from under his arm a great letter, nearly as large as himself." This is clearly a nonsensical situation.
Although there are many situations within the book that appear outlandish to us, there are many instances where Wonderland coheres to Alice's perception of reality. I quote page 8. No, I'll look first and see whether it's marked poison or not. Since Alice is using her intuition to decide whether or not to drink the contents of the bottle, her perception of reality is the same as when she is not dreaming. On page 97 she says, "It's no use speaking to it till its ears have come, or at least one of them." Then Alice felt very glad she had someone to listen to her. As the audience may have noticed, I've been switching off the narrating position. This isn't to bring you a better narrating experience. I, Carlos Santana, and Tito Ramirez will be switching sides from here on. He's a little busy on the toilet as he is on a desperate quest to find some toilet paper, so I'll be filling in for right now. Now let's go into the specifics of Chapter 12. Professors, explain to me how Alice's part in the court case is a problem with reality. The two sides are the king's side, who believes that perception of reality, who uses his perception of reality, and Alice is a knave side, where they claim that the king is creating a false reality.
Thank you, narrator. I side with the knaves and Alice's side over the king because the king uses logical fallacies for evidence or support to prove the knave's culpability.
The other side supports the king and queen. His assumptions that the knave isn't guilty coheres to his reality because of his intuition. In fairness, the king rationalizes with his perception, so his evidence and process of thought are real to him.
I found the toilet paper, if you all were wondering. But do you guys care to elucidate further? Very well. Let's take another quote from Alice. Rule 42. "All persons more than a mile high to lead the court," the king said. It's the oldest rule in the book, whereupon Alice says that it ought to be number 1. Because the king is creating fallacious knowledge, his argument is clearly not valid, and with these facts he tries to manipulate reality in his favor as to persuade the jury against the knave.
Have a counter-analysis. When the knave claims he didn't write the letter because there's no name on it, the king responds, "If you didn't sign it, that only makes matters worse." Even though that could be considered a fallacy, the king is justified because his vision of culture and reality prevent him from understanding the knave's perspective. His argument seems unfounded only to Alice and the knave, but to the king and the queen, his reasoning seems perfectly sound. Okay, Mr. Ramirez, unfortunately ate some soil that he thought was a brownie, so, now he's having a little emergency in the bathroom, so we'll be continuing without him. Now, gentlemen, examine the use of language in Chapter 12 and how it pertains to reality.
Language is clearly used to obfuscate knowledge and to define the line between the real world and Wonderland in Chapter 12. There are many examples to support this claim, and I will be getting to them momentarily after after my partner speaks.
I, on the other hand, believe that language is used to elucidate reality. Unlike my opponent, the real world and Wonderland are blurred together, almost to the point of the two worlds being intertwined.
Thought it was chocolate. Well, back to point, guys. You guys stated an introductory statement, but you didn't back up your claims. So give some evidence to support these absurd claims. An example to back up my claim: after the rabbit reads the letter, the king says, "That's the most important piece of evidence we've heard yet." But then Alice cleverly explains, "I'll give him 6 pence. I don't believe there's an atom of meaning in it." And so language here obfuscates knowledge and thereby distorts reality, which creates ambiguity of who is guilty.
I have a counterexample, Professor Cohen. Right after the letter, the king says, "Why, there they are," triumphantly pointing to the darts on the table. Nothing can be clearer than that. This quote clearly shows that language is used to dispel confusion and clarify the truth. Therefore, language is used to show that Wonderland and reality are actually the same thing. And briefly, to recapitulate what was said, there are many interpretations to Alice in Wonderland. One could argue that Alice's experience was a dreamlike state, or one could argue that Alice's experience was a reality. And this is exemplified by our two brilliant professors.
Thank you for watching this video today. We will conclude today's portion with some ToK. Language and of course reality has been an issue in today's changing world. And of course when I speak of this, I mean cyberbullying, psychiatry, the extinction of Native American languages, and politicians, of course. ToK is a great class, and our teacher is a wonderful woman. Thank you and good night.